Welcome to the Soft Life with Sadie Baddies. Sadie Baddies is the antidote to mental health stigma, and this podcast is hosted by yours truly, Priscilla O. Agyeman. We are a virtual sanctuary centering Black and multiracial people, and we prioritize the mental and emotional nourishment that is the foundation of collective healing in our communities. Thank you for being here. Welcome back to the Soft Life Baddies. I am so excited to be back and to be here with you all. As you know, we took a bit of a 2-week break right before the holidays started to regroup. And also I was celebrating and bringing in my 30th birthday abroad in Europe. I said to myself at the beginning of this year that I really wanted to bring in 30 by doing what I love best, which is traveling and seeing new cities, visiting new neighborhoods, immersing myself in different cultures. And that's exactly what I did. I went to Paris, Amsterdam, and London for 2 weeks, spent Thanksgiving there as well. And I feel inspired. I feel reinvigorated, just the way that traveling gives you that energy boost and it gives you that oomph of wanting to see the world and being inspired to create goals that allow you to travel. I had an amazing time. I couldn't have asked for a better birthday. And I'm just so grateful for all of the birthday wishes, all of the DMs, messages, comments, texts, audio messages, all of the things. I really appreciate it. And I'm so glad to be back. I think I also needed that bit of a break because I'm ready to continue sharing episodes of The Soft Life with y'all. So today's episode is actually requested by one of our community members who asked if we could share content about energy and how to create more energy in our day, how to manage and improve our energy sources throughout our day. I thought this was such an interesting topic because I think it's something that we all are low-key wanting to do more of, or wanting to have more access to our own energy sources. We all know that we are made of atoms and, chemicals and water and all of these organic components that make us human beings. So naturally, there is a natural energy source that's within us, but sometimes we kind of lose sight of how to tap into it. I know, especially now, because we're really we are in winter. It's December. It's getting cold. It's already cold outside, especially in the East Coast. People are inside a lot more than they usually are. So naturally, your energy levels are going to be a little bit lower because the sun is not out for as long. It's dark by 5 p.m. So I think this is really timely. And also, I think it's important to remember that we are nearing the end of the year, and just like flowers, just like trees, just like animals, we have a natural cycle. We have a natural rhythm and flow of life, and we can't expect to always be on 24/7. So I just want to make sure you keep that in mind as you're listening to, this episode and this topic in particular, because you're not going to always feel energized. It's natural to have your ebb and flow of, feeling exhausted or just kind of feeling like you're in a flow or a state of equilibrium, or, maybe you have more energy some days than others. It's totally normal. Also, another disclaimer, I am not a medical doctor. I am not a licensed medical professional. So all of this input and all this insight that you're hearing is from my firsthand experience. It's anecdotal. And I hope that it does help you. But obviously, before you change anything when it comes to your diet or any habits that you might have, especially if it does affect you medically, please consult with your doctor or a medical professional. So let's talk about energy. First, I want to talk about conserving your energy. And then we'll talk about increasing and kind of managing your energy levels. So what is energy? Energy is what provides us power. It's what provides us the momentum to go through life, literally. On a physical level, it's really what wakes us up in the morning. It's what helps us to go throughout our day. It's what helps us finish our workout. But your energy is also in the way I think about energy is also in a spiritual aspect. Your energy is how much outpouring that you give out every single day. So, you think about it like in the simplest terms, like a glass of water. You have a glass of water that you pour in. You have water that you pour into a glass, and then water comes out of a glass. In that same way, your energy is the water in this reference. So your energy is really it's like your battery level, right? So when I always think about what's my battery level today, what's my energy level today, that's kind of how I tend to start my day. If sometimes it's gonna be a 15%. Kind of like how this past weekend has felt coming back from Europe and having a 6-hour time difference and feeling super jet lagged. I feel like my energy levels are a lot lower this week than they usually are. But sometimes they're much higher. You might be, going at a full 75, 80, 90% because you had a full night's of rest or whatever the case may be. But also energy could also be looked at as how much effort you're putting into your commitments and the relationships and the responsibilities you have around you. If you're overwhelmed 24/7, you're going to have less energy, right? If you have a shit ton of work to do at your job or you are self-employed and you just have a lot of projects or clients to maintain, you're going to have a little bit less energy for yourself or for other things because you're pouring so much into one area of your life, right? I want to break this down into 4 simple ways to conserve and manage your energy. So number 1 is so simple, and it almost could be, overstated, is to learn the importance and the value of rest. We all know that there's different types of rest. There's physical rest where you're actually, you're in a state of calmness. You're not moving around too much. You're just still. There's social rest where maybe you're not filling up your social calendar as much, which is a bit hard right now because we are in the holiday season. There's a lot going on just socially for most folks. And there's emotional rest where maybe you've been going through a rough patch mentally or physically or emotionally, and you need somewhere to lay your head and your heart down in a place that feels safe. And that could be with a friend, it could be with community, whatever the case is. Knowing that the importance of rest is essential, because if you look at rest as something that's a luxury or as something that seems foreign to you or something that just seems difficult to access or maintain, it's going to be very difficult to develop a healthy relationship with rest. I think for me firsthand, I have had not always the best relationship with rest as a young 20-something, especially in college or just even afterwards. I always thought that rest was kind of a sign of laziness, which is so backwards when you think about it. And I think the more unlearning you do of capitalism and the more unlearning you do of what causes us to feel burnt out as human beings, you realize, wait a minute, I'm a human being. I'm not a machine. I don't need to be constantly on the go. I don't need to be running on empty 24/7. My favorite Peloton instructor, Tunde, always says in her rides, she says, when your phone is dying and you're at a restaurant, you will literally run and you'll go to the waiter and ask for a charger because you don't want your phone to die. And you'll run and you'll make sure that you get that juice for your phone and that battery for your phone so that you can use your phone. But for us, we'll run on empty for so long and then wonder why we're fatigued or we're dehydrated, or even when our body starts to react and we become sick. And I think that's a really good representation of how much we do push ourselves and our body. So learning how to rest and seeing the value of rest. I've written so many pieces. I've written blog pieces, Instagram posts, videos about rest and why it is so important. And of course, there's a lot of other amazing people and people of color that are really speaking up about the importance of rest. Specifically, first thing that comes to mind is the NAP ministry, which is all about revolutionizing rest for Black people, specifically in Black bodies, under a perspective of an anti-capitalist approach to rest. So resting and appreciating rest is so important. I think the minute I start to look at rest as, no, I don't need to earn this. If I'm tired, I am going to go lay down, period. No explanation needed. No, oh, let me look at my to-do list. No, I'm going to go lay down. I'm going to take a nap. I'm going to put my to-do list on for another day, and I'm going to make sure that my body gets the rest it needs and my mind and my soul gets the rest it needs. I think learning how to say no is an essential part of rest as well, because if you're not saying no and you're saying yes to everything, it just becomes that much harder to allow yourself the space to rest. So I have learned from being a recovering people pleaser, I cannot say yes to everything. I cannot say yes to everyone. Not everyone or everything even deserves my yes. There's some things that are meant to be, taken time to address. I don't think everything needs this sense of urgency that we may attribute it to. And when I say that, I mean, it could be your sense of urgency when it comes to replying to someone, or it could be a sense of urgency for doing a favor for somebody, or it could be a sense of urgency for you forcing yourself to work towards a goal that, instead of it happening in 2 months or 3 months, it's really supposed to happen in a year. So learning how to say no, learning how to pace yourself is essential. And that ties into how we can conserve our energy, because again, we are human beings. We have a set amount of energy that we can kind of tap into on a daily basis. Of course, it feels a little bit more abstract than it does literal. It's not like our bodies are like, okay, at 96%, this is your optimum energy level. It is obviously more of a physiological combination of things. But I think we can all agree that generally speaking, we can tell when we have energy and when we don't. And if we don't have a synchronized relationship with our mind and body to understand when your body's tired, when you actually need rest, it's just going to be that much difficult to learn those cues and to trust yourself and trust your body. So that's super important, is to learn and develop a healthy relationship with rest. I have also learned that scheduling out my weeks and my days helps so much with my energy levels. When I look at my calendar and I'm overwhelmed, I immediately start feeling drained, because I'm like, oh my God, where am I going to get this mental energy to commit and to execute all the things that I need to do today? Like, I just don't know how I'm going to do it. But when I sit down and I have my matcha and I have my lo-fi beats in the background and I'm planning out my week, I'm planning out my month, and I'm slowing down, it really makes me look forward to what I'm planning out, because I know that I'm giving myself increments of time, increments of energy every single day. And there's some days where I know, for example, Fridays, I like to keep Fridays light. I don't want to bombard myself with a lot of responsibilities and tasks that I need to do on a Friday, because I really do like to keep Fridays and the weekends in general pretty light. So that's exactly why I don't drop episodes on Fridays. I typically drop them on Mondays, because I know Mondays I have a little bit more energy. I have a little bit more motivation to execute and do what I need to do. So knowing yourself and knowing what your productivity schedule feels like for you is really helpful. And that can help you to conserve your energy so that you're using your time wisely, so that you're not wasting your time and spending time doing things that might be draining for you that you could commit to on another day. Okay, number 2. And we've talked about this before, but sometimes the girls, we need a reminder. Asking for help early on. When it comes to having energy and having the capacity to do things that are important, meaningful, urgent, whatever the case may be, when you have help, it really allows you to not spread yourself so thin. Simple. That is why every time I share input or insight or advice or tips, you will almost always hear me mention community and asking for help, because you are not supposed to exist in silos. You are part of an ecosystem. We are part of an ecosystem. We're not meant to do things alone. We're not meant to experience life alone. And sometimes we can put on this cape of, especially as a strong Black woman, I have to do everything myself. I have to commit to everything myself. I can't rely on anyone. But when was the last time you asked for help? Have you asked for help recently? Have you asked somebody to help you? Have you asked someone, hey, can you take this load off of me? That takes a bit of pride coming off of you too, to be honest. I know that it's not always easy for us to ask for help, and sometimes some of us truly don't have a support system. But for those of us who do have a support system that is around us, could you ask for help? And what does help even mean to you? Does it mean having someone listen to you for 20 minutes on the phone because you have nobody else to talk to? Does it mean hiring a babysitter or asking a friend or family member to watch your kids so that you can make a doctor's appointment, or you can just go get your hair done because you need to take care of yourself? Is asking for help making sure that you and your partner have really clear understanding of roles and responsibilities in your household, so that you're not the only person doing all the heavy lifting in the home? Is asking for help talking to a therapist? Maybe it's asking your doctor about medication for the first time. Maybe asking for help is asking a friend to grab coffee with you and finally telling them about a diagnosis that you have, or a relationship problem that you have, or losing a job and finally opening up to them about it. Asking for help looks like so many different things, but one thing I know is that asking for help will almost always alleviate that pressure, that internal pressure that we can feel sometimes when we are holding everything inside. I know that when I ask for help, my life gets easier, it gets better, it gets softer. And I think all of that also equates to me having more energy. When I have help, when I allow things to be done with me or for me, I have more energy to provide for other areas of my life. I also think it's really, really great when you are able to outsource certain roles and responsibilities and tasks that are draining for you. For me, I live in New York. I live in Harlem. So for me, that means getting my groceries delivered more often than not. That means getting my laundry sent out and getting it delivered as well. That means me asking someone that I know can do something better than I can, and asking or hiring them, for example, like a web designer or a graphic designer, or a podcast producer like my partner is for this podcast. I think having help and knowing when to outsource something, that's going to always give you more energy. Because, for example, I could sit here and attempt to piece together this episode and edit and engineer it. But if I have a partner, which I do, which I'm really grateful for, that can do this for me and with me, that gives me energy to focus and pour back into this community. So everything becomes this cycle of giving and pouring. And I think that that is a form of love too. That is what community care is not only just looking out for each other, but also hiring and putting your friends on. If you have a friend that can do nails or does hair or makes clothes or is a graphic designer and you have a certain skill set, maybe you work in music or you work in tech or you work in the service industry, whatever it is, combining your skills so that you can benefit from each other, and not in this super transactional way where it's just, I do this for you, you do this for me. It's really more of like a synergy. And I think that is literally why communities exist, and tapping into that is so important. So look around you. I would say if you're really struggling with finding why you're so drained, why you're so exhausted all the time, beyond the fact that, of course, we live in this capitalistic society that requires us to work, even though it is draining and exhausting for all of us. Beyond that fact, if you always find yourself feeling super exhausted and having no energy, ask yourself what areas in your life are overwhelming. Is it your friendships? Is it your relationship? Is it your family? Is it your job? Is it your health? What areas in your life feel overwhelming and don't feel balanced? Because once you do that inventory, you can kind of start to backtrack and see what areas in your life may require more help and more assistance and support in that way. So I'm a big advocate for using using outsourcing as a form of not just convenience, but truly, because if somebody has a skill set that is a little bit more fine-tuned than yours, why not tap into that? And asking for help, when it comes to your emotional and mental health is so essential. As you know, we have a laundry list of resources on our website, saddybaddies.com, where we have all resources from low cost to free mental health resources to a free depression guide, all of the things that could really help to guide you in your journey, because we're not meant to do this alone, and sharing resources is essential. Okay, number 3 I want to mention is your intake, monitoring your intake. And what does that mean? Your intake, what are you consuming on a daily basis that may or may not affect your energy levels? Obviously, the first thing that may come to mind is what you actually eat. So having foods that have high fiber, and this actually comes from a Harvard study that shows that eating foods with a low glycemic index, meaning eating foods that have sugars that are absorbed slowly, may help you avoid the lag in energy that typically occurs after eating quickly absorbed sugars or refined starches. So foods with a low glycemic index include whole foods, such as whole grains, high fiber vegetables, nuts, and healthy oils such as olive oils. In general, high carbohydrate foods have the highest glycemic indexes, and proteins and fats have glycemic indexes that are almost close to 0. So obviously, again, I'm not a nutritionist. I am not a medical health professional. However, coming from and looking at these studies that show specific foods literally do provide you with energy, because carbohydrates are the building blocks of our energy sources. And that's why so many athletes, when they are about to go to the gym or they're training or they're even performing, they load up on certain foods that will give them an energy boost and help them to sustain energy so that they can perform at their optimum. So look at your diet and your nutrition. What are you consuming on a daily basis that you think provides you with more energy? I know I'm laughing because I just had a flashback of a time where I was at dinner with my family and I ate so much, I think, bread at the table and appetizers, and the main course hadn't even come in. I was literally falling asleep at the table, and my family was like, "Wake up, girl. What are you doing?" I know that when I eat foods that are have a lower glycemic index, or just whole foods in general, if I take my time and I'm eating a meal that I preferably have cooked myself, maybe some brown rice, some protein on the side, some veggies, or just things that have a little bit more of a nutritional density than if I just order some takeouts, some Uber Eats. I know for me personally, it has a big effect on my energy levels. I can tell a big difference. And I think being honest with yourself too, a lot of us come from a distorted point of view when it comes to eating and nutrition. And it's really a shame that it's not taught in schools more and more accurately and appropriately for our age. Specifically speaking about food and nutrition. And, some of us have struggled with eating issues and food and body trauma for years. And I think it's important to be really gentle with yourself when navigating this conversation. But I know for me, I do notice a big difference when I do consume foods that have more of a nutritional density. And also, obviously, drinking a lot of water, staying hydrated. A lot of times when I feel really tired, it's because I'm not drinking enough water and I'm not consuming enough. Like, I'm just not hydrating myself enough. So being mindful of what I'm consuming every day and kind of doing a mini inventory of like, okay, this week I feel like I drink enough water, but maybe I didn't get enough vegetables in there. Like, how can I improve that so that I feel more energized and I'm not relying on just caffeine and soda and candy and, things that just are going to give me a burst of energy for a little bit, but then it might crash later. In addition to that, I don't think anything gives me more energy than going outside for like 10, 15 minutes and just getting a little walk in, especially if you have 15 minutes in your day and you just step outside, even if it's a little bit brisk outside. Honestly, I kind of love when it's a little brisk because it just feels more refreshing. When you just step outside for a few minutes, it really does energize you. The sun is an energy giver. We know this. We know that vitamin D is a huge source of energy levels in our body, so much so that a lot of people with melanin are vitamin D deficient, myself included. So it's so important to make sure you get your blood levels checked with your doctor, see where your blood levels are at, see if you are vitamin D deficient, because that could be contributing to your low energy levels. And I also am aware that vitamin D deficiency can mimic signs of depression because of the low energy, the fatigue, and some of the other similar symptoms. So making sure that you are, checking literally inside and making sure that you are taking and you have the efficient vitamins that you need for your body to run and be healthy is sometimes something that we overlook. I think sometimes we just I think there is this kind of sometimes it's an information loop that happens, and instead of just going to, okay, let me make an appointment with my doctor, let me see if I can go get a lab test real quick, we just go to TikTok or we just go to Pinterest and say, okay, let me start this diet. Like, maybe just start and see where your baseline is at. That's why it's so important to just follow up with your doctor, especially if this is something that's chronic. You really want to get expert advice from a professional and not just TikTok or wherever you see it online, because you need something to base off how you're feeling now versus how you felt before. That would be my input. I also take multivitamins. I take a multivitamin every day, as well as my vitamin D supplements. And it took a while for it to be effective. It took me about 6 to 8 weeks for me to really notice a difference. But when I did start taking my vitamins and supplements consistently, I noticed a big difference in my energy levels. So that is super important. And I also think energy levels can be affected by the people that you're around. And when I say intake, I also mean intaking the other sources of energy that you have around you. So if you have people in your life that feel like they're constantly taking and taking and taking and taking from you and not pouring into you, of course you're going to feel tired. Of course you're going to feel exhausted. Of course you're going to feel drained. Who are the people around you? Who are the people that make up the 5 people you spend the most time with? How do they feel about you? How do they feel about themselves? What about them makes you excited? What about them perks you up? And really start to wonder and look at the ways and how much access you're giving to those people. And when I say that, I'm not saying to just cut people off or, just, okay, F everybody. Like, I know we're in the season where people just start cutting people off, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm really trying to point out that sometimes you get so used to your environment, you get so used to the people around you that you don't even realize, hey, I really need to reevaluate this relationship because it feels one-sided. And we all go through things. We all go through our issues, our ups and downs. And sometimes people can withdraw, or they can be a little more inward, or they can be less social when they are going through things. And that's totally normal. But just make sure that the people in your life are pouring back into you just as much as you're pouring into them. I think when I noticed a couple of years ago, as I mentioned in my episode about friendship breakups last season, I had an episode about friendship breakups. And, just thinking about it right now, it's like, damn, there's so much evidence of how much energy I was pouring into these relationships that were kind of, I would say, sucking the life out of me in a lot of ways. And I compare my energy levels back then to now, and it's crazy. And I really do think sometimes you really need to take a step back and evaluate why you're pouring so much into a relationship that doesn't serve you. Sometimes it's not a friendship. Sometimes it's a relationship. Okay? Sometimes it's who you're dating. If they're not pouring into you, or who you're with, or whoever you're romantically involved with, if you are. Sometimes it's realizing that the person in your life that you're spending the most time with is not able to give you the same energy and the same affection that you're trying to provide to them. So again, just reevaluating and looking at those areas in your life. Obviously, you can include your job in this too. If you work at a job, or you have a job that is very physically and mentally draining, it's very likely that you're going to feel that way too, for sure. I know I have felt that way. I felt that way up until a few months ago, honestly. I felt drained and exhausted when I was at my previous role. And I feel a big difference now that I have a role that I think is more aligned with my lifestyle. And I think sometimes we can blame ourselves so much for not having enough energy to put up with being in an environment that's really not meant for us. So I always ask for discernment. I always ask for guidance. And I just try to take steps every day that lead me a little bit closer to where I want to be, so that I'm not wasting my time and my energy in areas that are not meant for me. So intake is super important, and remembering what you're intaking. Another big thing when it comes to intake is social media, your social media consumption. Social media is, we all know where social media has been going the last few years. I don't think it's a surprise that a lot of us are really struggling with our relationship with social media. I'm not going to go on and on about this really, because I have a whole episode on protecting your peace on social media. If you want to check that episode out, I will link it in the show notes. But social media can really be a big factor in your energy levels. What are you consuming on a daily basis? Are you on social media just to learn something? Are you trying to make connections with other people, or are you passively kind of going through the motions of social media and just reacting to everything? If you're reacting to every single thing that you see online, it's very likely that you might feel drained. I know sometimes if I spend too much time on TikTok, if I spend too much time on Instagram, and I'm just like reacting to whatever people are sharing, instead of just kind of passively like, oh, okay, that's cool. Oh, I don't agree with that, especially on Twitter. If I don't agree with somebody on Twitter, you know what I do? Instead of reacting or responding, I just keep scrolling. That's it. That's an energy input and output. If you decide to respond or leave comments to things that you don't agree with, you're creating a resistance every single time you do that. And the more you do that, the more you're going to feel on high alert in your nervous system. You're going to constantly feel like, I have to stick up for myself. I have to defend my commentary. I have to, share my 2 cents. Obviously, social discourse is really important. I think that's what creates the overall frequency of social media. However, are you reacting to every single thing? And is every single thing worth your reaction? Some things are not worth a reaction, period. So just being mindful of your intake. To me, once I learned how to monitor my intake of my social media, my nutrition, which I'm still working on, honestly, and my overall input on a physical level or even on a social level, it's really helped me to maintain and conserve my energy, because my energy is sacred and it's precious, and I don't want to waste it on things that are not necessary. And last but not least, let's talk about developing a solid morning and night routine. Okay. So I love me a good morning and night routine. I have made a video about this as well, which I'll also link. I think having a solid morning and night routine really sets the tone for the rest of your day. It really allows you to be present. It allows you to set yourself up for success. As corny as that may sound, I think really and truly having a solid morning and night routine, it gives you something to depend on. It gives you something to fall back on. And the more that you kind of flow into a routine, it can switch up, depending on the season or what you might need for the time being. But one thing I know is I kind of just surround my morning routine around these 3 values, or these 3 characteristics that I think are essential to me. And the first is stillness. The second is movement. And the third is nourishment. So my morning routine starts off with stillness. Most mornings I will typically wake up, and the first thing I will do, or at least try to do, is meditate for 10 minutes. And I have a channel on YouTube that I love to do guided meditations with. They're 10 minutes long. It's very non-intimidating. It's very chill. I love doing them. I will also share that in the show notes, because I've been doing it for over a year now. And it's just my way of greeting myself in the morning. It's my way of saying, hey, how are you? Check in with your heart, check in with your body, check in with your mind. And it makes such a difference in how I go about my day. So stillness is really essential for me. Just having that 10 minutes to ground myself. Also, I try to do some breathing, some breath work in the morning for honestly maybe about 3 to 5 minutes. And then once I'm, have my moment to ground and greet myself for the day, I'll get into my second part of my day, which is my morning routine, which is movement. And movement for me is literally movement. So that could be taking a walk. That could be doing some yoga like I did this morning. It could be Pilates on the Peloton app. It could be getting on the actual Peloton bike itself. It could be strength training. I like to mix it up. I don't like to do the same exercise every day, but I know that movement has helped me and my energy levels so much. I can't emphasize that enough. Movement and having at least half an hour of movement a day has made me so much more energized throughout the day. It really is like my time to just tap into my internal energy source. Can't emphasize that enough. And there's so many different ways to incorporate movement into your day. If you are able to, I think it's, great to have at least like a couple minutes or however long you can really afford of movement a day. I think movement is just one of those ways to literally change your state of being. It allows you to tap into the natural energy source that you have, and it can get rid of stagnant energy. At least for me, I feel like when I exercise or when I move my body, I'm getting rid of stagnant energy and I'm welcoming in new energy that can help me move through my day, literally. So movement of any kind is essential, at least for my morning routine. And then last but not least, in my morning routine, I always incorporate nourishment meaning nourishing my body, my physical body, but also nourishing in the form of food and making sure that I have a balanced meal to start my day. So I'm a 2-shower a day kind of gal, but I love to start my morning nourishing my body. After I shower, I love to, put lotion on, shea butter, really just take my time and like make sure my body's moisturized. Showering in the morning helps me to wake up, and it really does perk me up so that I'm not just kind of like, I feel like there's such a huge difference between when I first wake up and then after I like shower and then kind of start my day. It's like the shower is kind of like pressing restart. And it really is like, that's really when I start to feel awake and alert. So taking a shower in the morning has always been, literally since I was a kid, always like been like a 2-shower a day kind of person. And it just helps me to wake up and feel, ready for the day. Nourishing my body in that way, in my skin, doing my skincare routine. And also, of course, having a nutritious meal to start my day has really given me like such a simple, and it really doesn't need to be fancy. It doesn't need to be this like 12-step recipe. It could just literally be a sandwich. It could be eggs. It could be a yogurt, whatever it is. Just having something in your body that's going to give you sustenance and that's going to allow you to move through your day is crucial. I think when I skip meals or try to skip meals, it just doesn't work for me. So I stick to, starting my day or my midday with a meal that gives me energy. And as far as my night routine, the 3 aspects of my night routine include connection, creativity, and comfort. So connection, I love to do some type of connection every evening. So whether that's me spending time with my man, whether that's me spending time with a friend, whether that's me calling my family, whether that's me chatting with the saddy baddies, whatever it is, having connection really does give me energy. I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily an extrovert where I'm someone who needs to be talking or socializing every day in order to feel energized, but connection does provide me with a burst of energy sometimes. And I think sometimes when you're feeling really drained and tired, it's because maybe you didn't get that attention or that affection or that care that you needed in that day. And I think there's a big difference sometimes of, you ever, when you just spend time with a friend or you spend time with a loved one and you just feel like life is worth living again after you spend time with them? That's what connection is for me, at least. And I feel like even if it's virtual, it's still valid and it's still meaningful. So tapping into that connection can really give you that energetic burst and that energetic pickup that you might need throughout the day. Secondly is creativity, of course. Creativity coming in many forms. Creativity is one of the biggest ways I would say I tap into my energy levels. I feel most energized when I am being creative. I feel most energized when I allow myself the freedom to create. And I think creation and energy kind of go hand in hand. So whether you're a content creator and that means making videos, whether you're an artist and that means painting, whether you're a fashion designer and that means, picking up your sewing machine and, making a design, whatever it is for you, your creativity is your birthright. Your creativity is your voice to the world, in my opinion. So tapping into that creativity, where I think everybody has a creative element to them, maybe not always in an artistic way, but I think we are all creative people at the end of the day. So whatever creativity means for you, practicing that on a daily basis and sharing that or not sharing that, it's up to you. But I think that is one way to really feel energized. And I mean, think about it. When you go to a museum, a lot of times you're left feeling like, wow, I'm so inspired, or I feel like I have so many ideas, or I feel really drawn to this piece. Or if you listen to music and, maybe what you need is a fire playlist. And if you need a fire playlist, we got you, because I would say arguably Sadie Baddies has the best playlist, period. Definitely check out our playlist. I will also link those in the show notes. But a fire playlist in the morning, a fire playlist when you're working, a fire playlist when you're on your way home, when you're driving, when you're on the train, whatever. That to me is like literally the equivalent of taking a shot of espresso. Like, I just think creativity is always going to get me through and give me that push that I need to get through the day. And last but not least is comfort. Surprisingly, comfort can give you energy, but I think comfort is also, for me, a part of my night routine, because I need to be cozy. I need to, after the day is done and I have expelled all my energy, I need a way to replenish myself. And what better way than to be the coziest person ever and be in my bed with hella blankets and hella pillows, and just cuddling and just feeling super, super cozy. Comfort is one of those things that even if you have like a dog or you have a pet, or whatever it is that helps you to feel comfortable, comfort is replenishment. That's how you replenish your energy level. So after you've expelled and done all of that work, comfort is when you come back to yourself. That's where you start to feel at peace. And I think doing this cycle and looking at your energy levels as not just this straight line, but as literally like going up and down, that is how our energy levels are. Or even like a circle where it might start really high in the day and then it might fade out, and then it comes back around at night after you get a good night's rest. And of course, like, you can't overstate the value of good rest every night. That is really what's going to help your body replenish and feel nourished enough to go to sleep at night. Speaking of supplements, I forgot to mention CBD is such an important part, at least for my morning routine. CBD is a great supplement for me specifically, because it really helps me to be focused and calm, and it levels out my energy levels throughout the day. It kind of helps me to get rid of those like jitters or anxiety that I might be feeling from time to time. So CBD oil, love it. I actually have an affiliate code with one of my favorite CBD brands, Prismatic Plants. So you can use that code if you want to try out any of their products. This is not sponsored, but I'm just plugging it in because it really is one of my favorite CBD brands. And yeah, I hope that this episode is helpful for you. To recap and talk about, again, 4 of the ways to conserve and manage your energy. Number 1 is rest. Remember that your to-do list is not going anywhere. Number 2 is to ask for help early on. So that means tapping into your community, outsourcing tasks and responsibilities, going to therapy, whatever it is that help means for you and requires of you, doing that and not being afraid or ashamed to ask for help. Number 3 is monitoring your intake. So that includes being aware of your nourishment, your diet, multivitamins, how much sunlight you're getting, how much screen time you have, just in general, being mindful of your intake on a daily basis. And number 4 is developing a solid morning and night routine, as I shared with you. So again, I really hope that this episode helps. I hope that you're gentle with yourself this season, this winter season. I think, to be honest, if we had it our way, we'd all be hibernating. We wouldn't even be working right now. We'd all just be hibernating and having potluck dinners and sharing recipes with our friends and our loved ones. Ideally, that's how this winter season would be for us. But unfortunately, we have to keep going, or, a lot of us don't really have the option to just take the kind of breaks that we all really want and need. But I do hope that this episode helps you to be aware of your energy levels, your intake, your outtake every single day. Remember that your energy is sacred. It's yours. You don't have to say yes to everything. And part of pursuing or living the soft life is being aware of what you can offer every single day, not forcing yourself to do things that are really outside of your bandwidth, and being gentle with yourself in the process. So I will see you in the next episode. I'm really excited to be back, and stay soft. To stay connected, join Sadie Baddies on Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, and more, and sign up for our monthly newsletter on SaddieBaddies.com to stay in the loop. Sending you hella love, and stay soft, baddie.